This is Anand Girdharadas, and welcome to The Ink. Today we're speaking with the author and activist Naomi Klein. She's written a series of books, among them No Logo and The Shock Doctrine, that have met their cultural moments and changed the way people think and talk. Her work on labor, climate change, globalization, and other great critical issues of our time have driven not just her writing and filmmaking, but a lifetime of activism. Klein talked to us about her most recent book, Doppelgänger, that details a case of mistaken identity, and from there explores how the left abandoned political territory to the right and paved the way for the resurgence of fascism. We also discuss how to break the historical cycles of trauma that lock communities and nations into violent solutions, what people need to understand about Israeli politics and why it's so hard to stop the war in Gaza, and how President Biden and the Democratic Party should think about the war and the upcoming election. So thank you so much for doing this. I wanted to start by asking about what I think of as like a concept of leaving open territory, political territory in Doppelgänger, and this notion that there are real unaddressed issues, many of them, progressive and liberal forces fail to adequately speak to and connect with real things people are feeling, experiencing, encountering in their daily life that goes kind of unexplained or uncatered to by people on the left. And therefore, that kind of open territory becomes very ripe for the right to come in. And of course, the right doesn't actually help on these things. It provides often like fraudulent explanations, but the territory is usefully claimed. Can you just talk about that dynamic and unpack it a little bit and maybe pick a few of the areas, specifically topics, whether it's evolving masculinity or billionaires or racial change, where that open territory is left, how it's left, and then how it's claimed?
Yeah, I mean, this is a dynamic I've been interested in for a long time. And I think there is always this kind of dialectic between the rise of a fascist right and the failures of a center left, a far left, a failure to make alliances, but also these opening up of vacuums. Politics hates a vacuum. Somebody is going to fill it. If there are powerful emotions out there that are being unaddressed, if you're a smart strategist, you will study your opponents and you will speak to those feelings, even if you don't actually have serious policy responses to them. So, we saw this move very clearly in 2016 around free trade, which is an issue that I kind of came up in. My first book, No Logo, was in the alter globalization movement, and was part of this mass mobilization around the failures of corporate free trade. There were mobilizations outside World Trade Organization summits, outside World Bank and IMF summits, outside of Davos. And it was very much an anti-corporate and increasingly an anti-capitalist movement. And it brought together, farmers from India and trade unionists from Ohio and environmentalists from Seattle. I mean, that was the sort of Teamsters and Turtles Alliance of Seattle, right? Saying, okay, everyone's getting screwed by this deal, right? It's a bad deal. And we were increasingly talking about campaign finance and corporate rule and so on. And I think post 9/11, post invasion of Iraq, increasingly the left became simply anti-war. And, I was part of that left too, and that was important. But there's a way in which that structural analysis, that analysis of corporate power dropped off the agenda. And then what we saw in 2016 was Steve Bannon advising Donald Trump to speak directly to the deindustrialized belt of the United States and promise to renegotiate trade deals and so on. And so that's just smart strategy. You look at who and what your opponents are neglecting. And so I do see a lot of that, and that's where I work with this figure of the doppelganger, where I think what we're seeing on the far right now, on the Trump right. But it's not just Trump. It's Giorgia Meloni in Italy. It's Marine Le Pen in France. It's the Vox party in Spain. It's Bolsonaro. What we see is this kind of mix and match of neglected issues on the left, particularly, what you've written about, the billionaire class hijacking democracy, but they twist it and turn it into its kind of evil twin.
Thank you for listening to this preview of the Inc. podcast. To hear the full conversation, and to read and listen to more interviews with some of the smartest, most thoughtful people on the issues that really matter, join us today as a paid subscriber.